They took us to the edge of the galaxy and made it feel like home. But behind the starships, the alien worlds, and the iconic uniforms, Star Trek Deep Space Nine was powered by something far more human, the actors who gave life to its unforgettable characters. Today, many of those faces are no longer with us. This isn't just a list. This is a tribute to the souls who made us laugh, think, and sometimes cry, who carried entire storylines on their backs only to quietly disappear from our screens, and eventually from our world. Some passed in the prime of life. Others lived long and boldly, and each left behind a legacy that continues to ripple through the fandom. So let's journey back, not just to Deep Space Nine, but to the lives behind it, because their stories didn't end when the credits rolled. And what you're about to hear, you may never forget. They didn't just play roles, they embodied the soul of Deep Space Nine. Let's start with one of the most unforgettable presences in the series, Louise Fletcher, who played the cunning and controversial Kywin Adami. When she stepped into the role, she was 59 years old and radiated the quiet menace of someone who believed she was divinely chosen. Kywin wasn't your typical villain. She didn't plot in the shadows. She stood proudly in the light, convinced she was doing the Prophet's will. Ambitious, ruthless, self-righteous to the very end. Her final fall in the series finale felt inevitable, like watching a candle burn itself out in pursuit of glory. Off-screen, Louise Fletcher was no less commanding. She was already a legend, having won an Academy Award for her chilling performance as Nurse Ratched in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. A master of psychological intensity, she could say more with a look than most actors could in an entire monologue. She passed away on September 23, 2022, at 88, quietly, of natural causes. But in the eyes of fans, her performances will echo forever. And then there was René Auberjonois, the shape-shifting security chief Odo. He joined the cast at 53, and from the moment he appeared, you could feel something different. Odo wasn't just a changeling. He was a metaphor for the outsider, the observer, the man of order in a universe of chaos, cold at first, but painfully human underneath. And his arc, leaving the station to return to his people and teach them compassion, might be the most poetic ending in all of Star Trek. René was much more than a Starfleet officer. He was a Broadway star, a voice in The Little Mermaid, and a recurring face in countless shows. His versatility made him beloved across generations. But on December 8, 2019, metastatic lung cancer took him at 79. Still, he left behind a legacy as solid as Odo's convictions. And finally, the voice behind the walls. Majel Barret, often called the First Lady of Star Trek, was never seen in uniform on DS9, but her voice was everywhere. She was the calm, steady tone of the Federation computer. When her voice echoed through the station, it meant Starfleet was still in control. It meant order. She brought that voice to life across multiple series, shaping the very soundscape of Star Trek's future. But that wasn't all. She also played Nurse Chapel in the original series, Lwaxana Troi in The Next Generation, and was married to Star Trek's creator, Gene Roddenberry. After his death, she carried the torch, quietly, proudly, fiercely. On December 18, 2008, she passed away from leukemia at 76. But to this day, when fans hear her voice, it's like coming home. 3 titans, 3 different kinds of power: spiritual, moral, and technological. And yet, they all remind us of the same truth. In space, the stars may be distant, but the ones who light our screens can still feel close. Some stories end too soon, not because they lacked depth, but because real life doesn't always follow a script. Let's talk about Aron Eisenberg, who portrayed the spirited Nog. When Deep Space Nine began, Nog was just the comic relief, a mischievous Ferengi kid always causing trouble. But what followed was one of the most powerful character evolutions in the entire Star Trek franchise. Nog didn't just grow up, he rose. The first Ferengi in Starfleet, a soldier, a survivor, and in the unforgettable episode It's Only a Paper Moon, we saw the painful reality of war, trauma, and recovery through his eyes. It was raw, human, real. And so was Aaron. Born with just one kidney and facing serious health challenges his entire life, he defied the odds again and again. Through it all, he stayed close to the Star Trek community, beloved for his warmth, humor, and strength. But on September 21st, 2019, those health battles finally caught up with him. He passed away at only 50 from complications related to kidney failure. A small man with a massive legacy, he showed us that anyone, even a Ferengi, can rise above expectations. And then there's Edward Albert, who played Zara, a minor Bajoran official in the episode The Siege. His character may have only appeared briefly, cowardly, self-serving, forgettable to some. But Edward's real-life story left a deeper mark. The son of actor Eddie Albert and an environmental activist in his own right, Edward made waves in Hollywood with his breakout role in Butterflies Are Free and continued acting across film and television with quiet intensity. But behind the scenes, he was fighting a much harder battle: lung cancer. He died on September 22, 2006, at just 55 years old. His time on DS9 was fleeting, but the causes he championed and the emotions he stirred continue to ripple beyond the credits. And then there's the story that shook everyone: the tragic beauty of The Visitor. Tony Todd only appeared once as the older Jake Sisko, but that single performance made time stand still. In that haunting episode, we saw Jake lose his father to a temporal anomaly and spend the rest of his life trying to bring him back. It was poetic, philosophical, and heart-wrenching, and Tony made you believe every second of it. While many knew him for his chilling role as Candyman, sci-fi fans embraced him as a deeply gifted actor capable of turning a single episode into a masterclass in storytelling. Tony passed away on November 6, 2024, at age 69. No cause has been confirmed publicly, but his work? Eternal. Whether haunting us with horror or making us weep through time travel, his presence was unforgettable. 3 men. One who grew up before our eyes, one who left too quietly, and one who came in for a moment and left us forever changed. Because sometimes the stories that last the longest are the ones that never got to finish. In the Klingon culture, to die in battle is to live forever in song. And some of Deep Space Nine's most unforgettable moments came from those who carried blades, not just for glory, but for meaning. First among them, John Colicos, who returned as Kor, the legendary Klingon Dahar Master. Kor wasn't just a warrior, he was a relic of a forgotten age. First seen in the original series, he reappeared on DS9 with age-worn dignity and a thirst for one last fight. His final mission, portrayed in Once More Unto the Breach, is a masterpiece in character closure, an old soldier stepping into one final battle so that the younger generation may live. John Colicos brought unmatched gravitas to the role. His deep voice, commanding eyes, and Shakespearean weight made Kor feel real. Off-screen, he was just as iconic, also known for his role as Count Baltar in Battlestar Galactica. He passed away on March 6, 2000 at age 71 from a series of heart attacks. But his final on-screen charge remains one of Star Trek's most emotional tributes to aging, honor, and sacrifice. Then there's Joseph Ruskin, who played Tumek, a wise Klingon elder and spiritual advisor. He appeared in episodes like The House of Quark and Looking for Parmak in All the Wrong Places, offering calm, ancient perspective amid political chaos. Tumek wasn't there to fight, he was there to remind us why Klingons fight, and sometimes when to walk away. Joseph Ruskin was a Star Trek legend, appearing across multiple series, from the original series to Voyager and Enterprise. A true character actor, he blended into every role and yet stood out with ease. He passed away on December 28, 2013, at age 89, from natural causes. He was one of those rare actors who quietly shaped a universe, one wise word at a time. And finally, Michael Ansara, who played Jayal, a Tavnian diplomat who makes a tense claim over the child of Lita and Rom in the episode The Muse. It was a brief appearance, but memorable. Jayal's cold interpretation of tradition and cultural dominance challenged the very ideals of consent and identity. But Michael Ansara's Star Trek legacy goes far beyond DS9. He was one of the first to play a Klingon, Kang, back in the original series. He returned to the role in Voyager and DS9, becoming one of the few actors to portray the same character across multiple series and eras. Off-screen, he was a giant. Known for playing Cochise in Broken Arrow and voicing Mr. Freeze in Batman. The animated series, Ansara's deep voice and stoic presence gave his characters weight and sorrow. He passed away on July 31, 2013, at age 91 after a battle with Alzheimer's. 3 warriors, 3 legacies. 1 fought for relevance in a changing empire. 1 counseled from the shadows of tradition. 1 stood as a bridge between generations of Klingons and Star Trek fans. And though their battles have ended, their names, like true warriors, will echo in the halls of storytelling forever. Not every hero carries a phaser. Some carry a ladle, a story, or a piece of hard-won wisdom. In Deep Space Nine, the beating heart of the show wasn't always found on the bridge. Sometimes it was in a quiet kitchen in New Orleans. Brock Peters portrayed Joseph Sisko, father to Captain Benjamin Sisko and owner of a family-run Creole restaurant. Warm, headstrong, and deeply rooted in his beliefs, Joseph was more than comic relief or background support. He was an anchor. In a universe full of war and uncertainty, his gumbo, his firm advice, and his unwavering love gave Ben and the audience something rare, a sense of home. Brock Peters himself was a titan of cinema. His heartbreaking role as Tom Robinson in To Kill a Mockingbird remains one of the most powerful portrayals of racial injustice in film history. He also voiced Darth Vader in the Star Wars radio adaptations, bringing gravitas to every word he spoke. Peters passed away on August 23, 2005 at 78 from pancreatic cancer. But his screen presence, still comforting, still commanding. Then there was Gregory Sierra, who played Entek, a high-ranking Obsidian Order operative in the mind-bending episode Second Skin. Unlike the warm, paternal types, Entek was icy, calculated, dangerous. His mission? To convince Major Kira she was actually a Cardassian sleeper agent. Though his role was brief, it left a chilling impression and added to DS9's ever-present undercurrent of paranoia and political deceit. Gregory Sierra had range. You might remember him from Sanford and Son or Barney Miller, where his humor and charm made him a fan favorite. He passed away on January 4, 2021 at 83 after a battle with cancer. Whether playing warm or wicked, Sierra always left a mark. And then came William Lucking, who portrayed Furel, a grizzled resistance fighter and longtime friend of Kira Nerys. Furel wasn't polished. He wasn't political. He was real. Scarred by war and loyal to a fault, he brought gritty authenticity to the struggle for Bajor's freedom. His appearances in episodes like Shakar and The Darkness and the Light added emotional complexity to Kira's past, and reminded viewers that peace always comes at a price. Lucking's face was one of those you instantly recognized. Rugged, weathered, he found his biggest mainstream fame in later years as Piney Winston in Sons of Anarchy. On October 18, 2021, he passed at the age of 80. The cause was never publicly confirmed, but his legacy lived on through roles that always felt like they came from real life. 3 men, 3 different kinds of mentors. A father, a shadowy manipulator, a freedom fighter. They weren't always front and center, but when they spoke, you listened. And when they left, it was felt. Because in every great story, there's someone who reminds the hero why the fight matters. Some characters whisper instead of shout, but when they speak, it stays with you. Deep Space Nine didn't just tell stories of war and politics. It gave space for music, memory, and culture. And the actors behind these moments left a subtle but powerful mark. Let's begin with William Schallert, who played Varani, a renowned Bajoran musician and symphony conductor. He appeared in the episode Sanctuary, offering a glimpse into Bajor's post-occupation healing. Pirani wasn't involved in conflict. He was a symbol of what peace could bring back. Art, expression, soul. It was one of those rare Star Trek moments where silence and subtlety said more than any battle. William Schallert's real-life resume was long and filled with kindness. From The Patty Duke Show to In the Heat of the Night, he played the kind of characters you believed in. Born in 1922, he passed away on May 8, 2016, at 93 from natural causes. A long life, rich with stories. And then there's Kenneth Tobey, who portrayed Rurigan in the episode Shadow Play. Rurigan was an old man in a peaceful village, only for it to be revealed that the entire village was a holographic projection he created to cope with the loss of his real home, destroyed by the Dominion. It was one of DS9's most tender and haunting stories about grief, memory, and the human, or alien, need to hold on. Kenneth Tobey was a legend of 1950s science fiction, The Thing from Another World, It Came from Beneath the Sea, and countless others. He passed away on December 22, 2002, at 85. For fans of classic cinema, his appearance on DS9 was like finding a piece of movie history quietly embedded in the stars. Next, we remember Richard Kiley, who played Sayetik, a flamboyant and passionate Bajoran priest in The Circle. Sayetik wasn't a villain or a hero. He was a part of a swelling political storm, caught up in the dream of rebellion. But Richard Kiley made the role sing. Literally. Known for his Tony Award-winning performance in Man of La Mancha, his baritone voice could fill a room, and he brought that same energy to Star Trek. Off-screen, Kiley was one of the great American stage actors. He passed away on March 5, 1999, from lung cancer at the age of 76. His voice still echoes in old recordings and in the hearts of those who love great theater. These men didn't change the course of the Dominion War. They didn't command ships or lead revolts. But they showed us something just as important. That in the quiet corners of the galaxy, life still happens. Music still plays. Villages still mourn. And voices, some humble, some grand, still carry meaning across the stars. If Deep Space Nine had a beating heart, it was filled with conflict, not just between good and evil, but between right and right. Few characters embodied this moral tension better than Bernie Casey, who portrayed Calvin Hudson. Hudson was once Benjamin Sisko's closest friend, a Starfleet officer, loyal and brave, until he walked away. In the two-part episode, The Maquis, Hudson defects to the titular resistance group, believing Starfleet abandoned the colonies on the Cardassian border. It was a gut punch. Suddenly, the enemy wasn't a Klingon or a changeling. It was someone who once stood beside you. Bernie Casey brought quiet strength to the role. He wasn't a villain. He was a man with convictions, willing to break the rules to uphold his own version of justice. A former NFL wide receiver, Casey turned to acting with remarkable success, appearing in Revenge of the Nerds, I'm Gonna Get Yasuka, and even Never Say Never Again. He died on September 19, 2017, at age 78, following a stroke. And just like his character, he walked his own path with pride. Then we meet Barry Jenner, who played Admiral Ross, a Starfleet officer operating in the gray zones of wartime diplomacy. Ross appeared in the later seasons, helping coordinate efforts during the Dominion War. Calm, firm, and efficient, he rarely showed emotion, but behind his steady gaze was a man making impossible choices. He wasn't corrupt. He wasn't evil. He was necessary. And in a show where even Starfleet's nobility was questioned, Ross reminded us how complicated leadership can be. Barry Jenner was a familiar face on TV from Knots Landing to Family Matters. He passed away on August 9, 2016 at age 75 due to complications from prostate cancer. On screen, he never raised his voice. He didn't need to. His authority was felt and earned. And then there was Tom Towles, who portrayed Han Teal, a Cardassian informant in the episode The Circle. Though his appearance was brief, it was memorable. Dark alley, darker intentions. Han Teal's whispered threats and shady dealings added tension to an already volatile episode, and Towles delivered it with his signature unease. A master of unsettling presence, he was known for chilling roles in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, The Devil's Rejects, and Night of the Living Dead. He passed away on April 2, 2015, at 65. The cause was never publicly confirmed. But for fans of horror and cult cinema, Tom Towles remains unforgettable, a face you never forget, and a voice that always made you listen just a little closer. These men didn't offer comfort or clarity. They offered questions. What would you sacrifice for safety? When does loyalty become betrayal? And how far can you bend your morality before it snaps? They weren't villains. They weren't heroes. They were mirrors. And sometimes, what they reflected wasn't easy to look at. Some actors don't just appear in science fiction. They help define it. On Deep Space Nine, a few familiar faces stepped in, not for long arcs or dramatic transformations, but to lend the show their weight, history, and timeless energy. And for many fans, that was more than enough. Take Dick Miller, who played Vin, a skeptical, street-smart 21st century man who interrogates Captain Sisko in the two-part time travel episode Past Tense. It was a brief role, but packed with commentary. Vin wasn't evil. He was a product of his time, reflecting society's deep-rooted issues with class, race, and authority. Watching him confront Sisko was like watching two timelines collide, and neither walked away unchanged. Dick Miller was already a legend when he showed up on DS9. A favorite of director Joe Dante, Miller had roles in cult classics like Gremlins, The Terminator, and A Bucket of Blood. He passed away on January 30th, 2019, at the age of 90, from natural causes. His face was one of those rare things in Hollywood, instantly recognizable and always welcome. Then there was James Darren, who played Vic Fontaine, the smooth-talking, lounge-singing hologram who somehow became one of the show's most beloved characters. Vic wasn't just comic relief. He became a therapist, a confidant, and a moral compass for crew members like Nog and Odo. His episodes weren't about space battles, they were about healing, love, trauma, identity. And when he sang, you felt it. James Darren had been a teen idol back in the 60s, with hits like Goodbye Cruel World and roles in films like Gidget, but it was his unexpected second act as Vic that made him a Star Trek icon. He passed away on September 2, 2024, at the age of 88. Fans still return to Vic's performances when they need comfort, or a little Sinatra in space. Kenneth Tobey, who we met earlier as Rurigan in Shadowplay, was also part of this legacy, having starred in some of the most iconic sci-fi films of the 1950s, like The Thing from Another World. He brought with him not just a role, but an era. And then there was Gregory Itzin, who portrayed Hein, a Federation bureaucrat caught in a tangle of negotiations and manipulation. Itzin would later become best known for playing the sinister President Charles Logan on 24, a role that earned him an Emmy nomination. But on DS9, even in limited screen time, he carried the poise and tension of a man who knew power and how to use it. He passed away on July 8, 2022 at age 74 due to complications following surgery. For fans of layered villains and political thrillers, Itzin was unforgettable. These actors weren't just guests. They were bridges, linking Star Trek to the wider universe of science fiction, fantasy, and film. They didn't need special effects or lead roles. All they needed was a scene. And suddenly, you felt the weight of history behind the camera, because the best legends don't need to speak loudly to be remembered. They're gone now, but not forgotten. For 6 seasons and nearly 200 episodes, the actors of Deep Space Nine didn't just tell stories, they became stories. Their performances weren't just entertainment, they were windows into fear, hope, faith, honor, and humanity, even among aliens. Some made us laugh. Others made us think. A few made us cry. But all of them left a mark. And now that the final credits have rolled on their lives, we're left with the only thing that lasts longer than any mission log or space battle: memory. It's strange how a single scene, one line, one expression, can live on decades later. How a character we saw for only an episode can still feel real. That's the magic of this cast. They made us believe that a distant space station orbiting a wormhole could feel like home. And maybe that's why their loss stings, because they weren't just part of the show, they were part of us. If you've made it this far in the video, thank you. Not just for watching, but for remembering. Let us know in the comments. Who among these actors or characters meant the most to you? Which performance still lives in your heart? And which unsung moment from DS9 deserves to be celebrated more? We'd love to hear your memories, because in the end, that's how stories live on. If you found value in this video, consider giving it a like. It helps more Trek fans discover these stories, and if you want more deep dives, tributes, and untold Hollywood stories, hit subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a journey. We'll be back soon. Till then, may your path be clear, your shield strong, and your memories full of stars.